empowerment, ministry, and a heart for people. We are the Women of Excellence and Empowerment International. The heart of who we are is seen by the fruit of our labor. The Fiesta, King's Daughters program, empowering our educators, and more.
Women of Excellence and Empowerment Ministries presents When on Pause is More Than Pandemic Pause on Monday the 30th of August at 8 p.m. A frank discussion about the impact of menopause. It's going to be exciting, informative, and revelatory as Miss Jennifer Babb, registered nurse and specialized menopause trainer, unpacks the truths about managing menopause. A special invitation is extended to all men to be a part of this Power Pause discussion. You won't want to miss it. Bring along a friend and join us on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. See you there. See you there.
Praise the Lord. Good night, good night, good night to everyone. It is really indeed a privilege to be on this platform this evening to welcome you to join us and Empowerment Ministries in what we consider an exciting night. We want to say to every viewer across this global village, the north, the south, the east, the west, we want to welcome you to When on Pause is More Than Pandemic Pause. And I'm pretty sure that word pause is very relevant to us today. It is very much with us today. And we believe that this session this evening is going to be an interesting session, thought-provoking. The topic is thought-provoking and one that I think would have piqued your interest already, to the extent that there are many of you that would have been on with us already. So we want to say a very special welcome to this forum. We trust that you would have an enjoyable evening, and we trust that those of you that may be feeling a little overwhelmed, a little depressed, a little disillusioned, a little discouraged, a little frustrated, experiencing issues in your families and because of things that are going on in your body, we want you to know that this is the time to tune in and learn more about what's happening with you and with those significant others in your life. Knowledge is power, and the application of that knowledge is greater power. So as we look at When on Pause is More Than Pandemic Pause, we're talking about menopause. We welcome you, Women of Excellence and Empowerment Ministries. We welcome you to this intriguing topic this evening. The first syllable of menopause is men. First syllable in the word menopause is men. Therefore, we're calling all the men from all areas of this global village to jump in on this discussion and gather some valuable but necessary information that will enable you to navigate your interactions with women at home, on the job, at church, in your community, your wife, your significant other, your sister, whoever is around you, that you'll be able to learn more about what is going on. We want you to know that you can post your questions, whether you are on Facebook, whether you are on our YouTube channel. You can post your questions and you will know for sure that we are going to respond to your questions. We might end up also having a part two. If that is necessary, for sure, we're going to have a part two. Our Jennifer Babb, and she's a registered nurse of decades. She's trained specially in the area of menopause. She has traveled globally for years, educated on this subject. She's worked for 27 years for a global pharma company, and she spent 15 years in our local medical clinics and QEH. She says she loves the Lord deeply. She's the mother of 3 and now a grandma. To be the moderator for this evening is our minister, Mary Thompson, who is also very, very educated in this area of medicine. She is also a registered nurse. She is someone that likes to see persons educated when it comes to health issues. And this evening, I want to invite Minister Mary Thompson and also Miss Jennifer Babb to take it from here. And we just want you to enjoy this session, be a part of it, and just make sure that you put those questions there. We will answer. God bless you, ladies, as you continue with the session. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Harris, and good evening to all our viewers on the World Wide Web. We are happy that you have chosen to join us this evening for this presentation. Jennifer, we are elated to have you. We know that you have a vast amount of knowledge on this topic, and you have spent quite a bit of time, a huge chunk of your life you have spent traveling the globe, educating people, both patients, medical professionals, you name it, you have spent time educating us. Tell us at this stage what keeps you passionate about this topic of menopause, and then you can go into your presentation.
Well, first, let me say thank you very much, Mary, Sister Mary, and Minister Harris, and the team for giving me the opportunity to be able to assist the women and men globally who will be listening. I'd like to say that what keeps me so passionate is, first of all, I am a woman and I am married and I am 67 years in another few months. And therefore, I don't just have the theory, I have the practice. So I'm not only going to talk from what I was taught, but what I know as a woman myself. And I know that it's a challenging time. And what I would like to say to all of the women and men who are listening, you're going to hear a lot of things that could happen to women at menopause, but not everything is going to apply to you. So please do not sit there and think that when Mrs. Bob is finished, every symptom that she calls, you're going to have. So that, I think those are the two things that keeps me so passionate about it, because I truly believe that the women and men around the world, especially women who have partners, should be listening. You will learn a lot from how you can handle this issue when it arises, because it will arise. When we are through, you will find out that it's going to hit you somehow, somewhere, as long as you are a female.
Okay, so thank you for setting that platform from which we would launch. So could you please start by telling us, Jenny, what exactly is menopause? What does it mean to be menopausal? So often we hear people say you're at the change of life, you're going to have mental illness, you're not going to be able to function sexually. Tell us, let us explore this topic together.
I thank you. I think that is the first question that people always ask. What is menopause? But what I would say first off is menopause is when a woman no longer has a period for 1 full year. I like to repeat that, 1 full year. Now, if she has a bleed after 1 year, after she has not bled for a full year, she should go and have it investigated by her doctor. So once the period has stopped and you haven't had a bleed for 1 full year, you are truly menopausal. But if you would allow me, there's a diagram that I like to just put up of the the female reproductive system that will give us a better insight as to where we start and how we get to menopause. So I'd just like that diagram to come up for me, please. Perfect. Now here we have a diagram of the female reproductive system, and you have the uterus, the ovaries, the fallopian tubes, and the vagina. What I would invite you to look carefully at is where you have those two like tubes coming over in a curve and sitting on what look like a bunch of eggs. That's the fallopian tube, and those are the ovaries. And inside of that, you have the uterus. Then you have the vagina following. Now you may remove the diagram now. Thank you. Now, every young female child that is born with a uterus. That's the norm. And that uterus has what you just saw, fallopian tube and ovaries. Inside of those ovaries, you have what we call eggs. And there are hundreds and thousands of eggs inside of those ovaries, those two ovaries that you saw. Now, in the early stages of the child's life, they are there, and the role that they play is they produce a hormone called estrogen for the female, but it also produces progesterone. But the estrogen is the dominant hormone. That hormone is what makes us feminine. It gives us our shape, it gives us hair on our head, it gives us the soft voice, and it's soft. It, generally speaking, is what develops us as females. Now, when a young child reaches puberty or thereabout, the eggs in the ovaries mature. Once they mature, then they need to go somewhere because mature eggs will not stay there and just do nothing. And it's the way God designed us as women. The eggs will leave the ovaries, and maybe 12 or so on a monthly basis will travel up the fallopian tubes and sit in the womb. Now, while sitting in the womb, there's something happening. While sitting in the womb, the estrogen is being released, and what it does is it causes a buildup of the lining of the womb. And when about mid-cycle, which is about 14 or 15 days, you get it stops in production, and the progesterone takes over, and then that starts to be released as well, and that slows down the building of the lining of the womb. And at the end of 28 days, you get the sudden drop in the progesterone, and with that, the young woman will get shedding. It causes the egg that is there to shed. Now, usually many of the eggs die off on their way to the womb, and the one egg that stays will rupture, and then she will get shedding of the lining of the womb. Now, this really is a preparation for the woman to be able to become pregnant. But when she doesn't become pregnant, this process goes on unless there are other issues along the way. Now, first, what happens?
I think, Jennifer, you are muted.
Are you ladies still hearing me?
I'm hearing you now. So we seem to have a little bit of a technical difficulty. Okay, as we wait for our technical team to get us back on track, one of the questions that was posted, the person asks, what if the bleeding comes back after 2 years and it's coming as spotting on a monthly basis? Remember what Jennifer said, that once you have had bleeding, cessation of bleeding for one
Had a
entire
short.
year, you are considered to be menopausal. If that bleeding reoccurs after that year, we refer to it as a postmenopausal bleeding, and then you really need to see your doctor. There is a need for further investigation. So Jennifer is back with
That
us.
is correct.
I was
Yes.
just one of the questions that was posed in the chat was what happens if you started bleeding after 2 years of not having a period I know you're having bleeding, spotting on a monthly basis. So I was just saying that is considered postmenopausal bleeding, and you would be encouraged, it would be in your best interest to see your obstetrician and gynecologist at this stage, because
You
that
are
would be
correct about that.
considered
Most definitely.
postmenopausal bleeding.
Now, and any time that a woman has a bleed that goes past after she has stopped bleeding for 12 months and she bleeds after that, she should go and see her obstetrician and have it investigated. It must be investigated. You see, because there could be other things going on. For instance, she could have fibroids that could be partially responsible for some of the changes taking place in the womb. She could also have some hormonal issues in relation to high levels of estrogen or low levels of estrogen. And sometimes those hormonal changes can interfere with the functioning of the female reproductive system. So she should see her physician and have it investigated before she does anything else. She should go to her doctor after a year has passed.
Okay, so let's continue on this trend of telling us and telling our audience what happens with these tears of a disappointed uterus.
Okay, when the woman reaches about 40, 45 years or so, she goes through what is called natural menopause. Now, some women are going through natural menopause before even 45 for reasons that are not always clear. Some women actually have that experience, but you have two types of menopause that can be introduced: surgical, or she can have naturally introduced. Now, the surgical menopause is brought on as a result of her having to have her ovaries removed and the womb. Now, this happens in many cases when a woman has had issue with fibroids. And fibroids is just, it is just fibrous tissue that grows either within the lining of the womb or the womb itself or along the area of the fallopian tubes, but it can grow just about any part of the womb, and they become just a nuisance. They become enlarged and they promote bleeding, heavy bleeding, to the point where women often become very weak and cannot function normally. So then what has to happen is they have to usually at the end of the day have to have surgery. Now, if she has surgery, the obstetrician may decide to take the womb out and leave the ovaries in place so she can still have estrogen production. Now, as we go along, I will tell you what are the benefits for us as women of having our estrogen still being produced in our bodies. Now, once she has had surgical removal of her womb and the ovaries are still intact, she will get production for another 6 months, 6 years, I'm sorry. But if the ovaries are removed, she will go almost immediately into what you would call full-blown menopause. But just before we get there to the hot flushes and all the things that we'll talk about, you have what's called perimenopausal phase. And that is the phase around 45, 42, 43, 46, 47, somewhere around there. Some things different start to happen to a woman. Now, there's something that the science has shown, and it says that a woman often goes into menopause like her mom. So if any of you have your mother still around, try to find out when she went into menopause and how it happened. You are more than likely be going into menopause like your mom. Now, let's look now at the perimenopausal phase. What happens at perimenopausal phase? Say 45 or so. All of a sudden, you may find that you have a severe intolerance to heat. That's what happened to me. Heat, I could not stand heat. As soon as I'm in a car and the sun is hot and I start to feel really hot, I got miserable. Some women start to find they get a little sleepless at night. not sleeping as they would normally. So the symptoms come on gradually. And some women may only have those two, nothing else. A little heat intolerance, maybe a little sleeplessness, a little irritability, in that you'd say something to them and they kind of snap at you and you wonder, wait, what's she snapping at me? That doesn't deserve her to be snapping at me. But it is a gradual process. And around that time, the woman may find that instead of having a full period every month where she's bleeding 7 days, 6 days, she may start to gradually have a decline in her bleed. So as opposed to 7 days, she may go to 6 days. Then she goes to five. Then she goes to four. And all of this is happening between, let's say, 40 to 45 to 46. It's a gradual process. So she stops, the bleeding starts to be reduced until finally 1 month, around 48, 49, 50, depending on her genetics, she just does not bleed 1 month. And the next month, she's looking for a period, no more bleeding. And the next month, and that continues for 1 full year. But this is when it starts to get really challenging for us as women. Now, I'm going to give you a list of symptoms. And please, ladies and gentlemen, do not think for one moment that you're going to have all of these symptoms. You are not. Okay? You may have
Okay.
two. Yes? You were going to
So
say something,
Jenny,
Mary?
before we get to the symptoms, could you give us an age range for the whole period of menopause? How long does it last?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. It's one of the sweetest questions you can ask. Many women, like myself, go into menopause at around 50, 50 years of age. Now, there's something that I want to bear in mind here. So I'm going to jump the gun a little. The estrogen that is produced, that is responsible for our functioning as women, targets what we call estrogen receptor sites. So, doing before she reaches menopause, she has receptor sites in the brain, the heart, the lungs, the breast, the kidneys, the bladder, her skin, everywhere that you can think that there is a blood supply that feeds an organ or any aspect of our body, the estrogen resites are there. And those estrogen sites are responsible for feeding the brain cells, the lungs, the breast, the bladder, the tissues, the soles of her feet, the scalp of her head. So when she reaches menopause, this is what happens now. She no longer has the production of estrogen that she had before. And so when she gets to 50 or thereabout, as I said, thereabout, the production stops. But the question you ask is how long it's going to last. Well, once the estrogen has stopped, my darlings, it hardly comes back. So we now have to learn to live without having this lovely chemical stuff that has been doing such good work for us. And I'll tell you the good work it does when you start to hear of the things that started happening to us when it's no longer being produced. So you
Okay.
have another question before I move on?
No, you can go on at this stage.
Okay. Well, the, remember I said estrogen receptor sites are everywhere. So menopause will affect us as women. Pay attention from the crown of her head to the soles of her feet. That means it touches every aspect of your body. Crown of your head to the sole of your feet. So the head, the brain, all the way down the breast, the bladder, the skin. What happens is that as the estrogen is no longer there, for instance, many of you may notice that for some of you, and it's genetic, the hair starts to be a little thinner. It's not as thick and healthy as it used to be. Even the scalp starts to lose the pores that are responsible for feeding blood supply to the roots of our hair to have it stay long and healthy. Those are depleted. That's one of the reasons why we tend to get our hair gets thin and thinner as we get older. Some women, not all. Remember, it's genetics. The eyes, macular degeneration start to change in how we see. Our vision is impaired. It's not what it used to be. The skin under our neck starts to
Exactly.
get a little I don't want to say wrinkly, but yes, we do have a little change in the skin under our neck. And generally speaking, the skin, our general skin tone changes. What you may find is that you have to use more jellies and creams to get your skin plucked up than you did before. The breasts and the tissues of the breasts start to fall, cause the breast tissues to droop because they lose their elasticity. So that's why we have to wear strong bras to keep our breasts up at that time. I'm going all the way down. Let's get to the bladder. The bladder also is impacted. And what many women at this time will find as they get older, and this could happen more so in the between the 70s and close late 60s to the 70s, may find that she wants to go to the bathroom and has to go when she has to go, or she may even let herself because she may find that the weakening of the muscles of the bladder causes her to have to go to the bathroom when the urge comes, and she can't sit around or wait around like when she was young. um, the bones of our bodies are affected. And I have a more detailed bit of information on that, which I'll tell you about, because that leads to something called osteoporosis, where the bones become thin and weak, and women are more prone to fractures, hip, the spine, and those are the fractures that can cause us to be debilitated if they occur. So we move from the abdomen now, and we go to all the way down to the soles of your feet. Have you ever noticed that many older women wear soft, flat shoes and they don't wear high heels anymore? Anybody notice that? Yes. Mary, I'm sure you've seen that. Yes?
Know that I no
We
longer
don't wear.
wear heels.
No, they can't, because you know why? The soles of the feet become soft and more and tender because they lose a lot of the normal blood supply that keeps the soles strong and healthy. That tissue also becomes weaker. So we have to wear flat, soft, comfortable shoes. No, actually, she shouldn't be wearing high heels at that time, because if you miss and fall and you break a leg, well, that could be the end of you. Break a hand, so you better off wearing comfortable shoes when you get to my age. So let's go now into the real thing now. Those are just the superficial areas that I kind of mentioned. Let's talk about sexual function. Now, the vagina, which is ours from the day we are born, that vagina is affected because of the lack of estrogen. The estrogen receptorocytes no longer feed the vaginal walls as they used to. So the vaginal walls become thin and shorter, and women will find that intercourse can be painful at that time. Now, this is the reason why many women at this time run away from being intimate with their partners, and they don't tell the men what is happening to them. So, what often happens is he is still virile, because men can be virile up to 80. They can be. But here you are as a woman, accustomed to having intimate relations with your partner, and all of a sudden it's painful, it's uncomfortable. And the other thing is, some women even find that they don't want to have sexual intercourse during the early phases of menopause. I say the early phases because when the body suddenly is is depleted of this estrogen levels that it's used to, it is like a shock to the system. So the woman has to now try to adjust to this sudden change in her body, and that is one area that's often affected. But the woman needs to talk to her partner and tell him what's happening. Now, there's also, I'll talk a little bit more about the treatment when I'm through, but just give you an idea as to what happens. So women get sleeplessness. Keep a hold. They get memory loss. They kind of have some lapses in memory that, wait a minute, did I turn off the stove when I left home? I can't remember if I turned the stove off. That happens to a lot of women. As a matter of fact, I can tell what my experience. I would get up in the mornings, get the kids ready off to school, and halfway down the road, I can't remember if I locked the door because I was living alone at the time. I had to turn back, lock my door. I said, you know what? I had to find a way to make myself remember that the door was locked. So when I realized this was happening, I would lock the door in the mornings. I'd stand up and look at the door and say, you know what? You're locked today. You are not tricking me. I'm not coming back here to lock you again. So women have to find unique ways when this starts to happen to handle those issues. And they're short-lived for many of us. It doesn't happen forever because the body starts to adjust to the lack of estrogen. And so the brain, the heart, all of the organs eventually will settle down and not be searching all over. The receptor sites will stop the search for estrogen. Now, mood swings, that is something that many women have. Some women I have heard at some of our meetings will stand and say, all of a sudden, they feel like crying. Nobody did them anything, and they feel like crying. Some women get depressed. Now, it is good that we are listening because this is a time now where we have COVID that is causing so much pain and anguish to many of our people, our women who are the strongholders of many homes. And this can affect their life with their partners. Mood swings, depression. So again, this is something that can. I am not saying it happens to all women because my experience is that depending on your personality, you will find that there are some of these issues that won't affect you. I never had mood swings. I didn't have depression because that's not my personality. If you are a person who is energetic and you want to do things, you find things to do to keep you alive and alert, exercise, you think about diet and you try to do the right thing, you will find that you are more, and you love people and you're genuinely a loving person, you will find that the mood swings may not attack you. But if you're kind of quiety and you like being on your own and you really don't like too much company and yeah, you like your own book and little things like that, I find that women with that type of personality may have that as an issue.
Jenny,
Hot
you have
flushes.
shared, just one minute, you have shared so much powerful and pertinent information with us. And there's one burning question that keeps coming. Persons want to know, is it normal for women to become irritated when they're going through menopause?
Yes, it is. It is. Irritability is one of the issues that many women experience at this time. You need partner, children, you need your friends to understand, to be understanding at that time. So, many women have this as a problem. When I talk about mood swings, part of that is irritability as well. They find that things that they can normally tolerate, that they don't have, they find they can't cope with it. It is like too much, and listen, it's annoying. This is too much. I can't deal with that. And so many many women, thank you very much, Diana. Many women find that it is a time in their life, tell the truth, they would like to just get rid of everybody from around them and live in a little hole all by themselves. It can be like that. So, look, I have had some women who have had difficult times. Oh Lord, I don't know how the poor husbands go. Trust me, they are depressed. They don't want to go to work. Sometimes they have to stop work. They don't want to have sex with their partners. Listen, don't even want the partner to touch them. It can happen. You know what? You know why I say it can happen? It happened to me. My husband did me nothing, but I found at night when a hot flush hit me and I am sweating profusely. The fan is on. Back this we didn't have AC. The fan is on, foot, head, the sheet is on, and you think that you're nice and warm. Off comes the sheet. And then you get too cold, back on the sheet. Get too hot, off goes the sheet. And that can disturb not only your sleep, your partner's sleep too. And also the irritability. Now, the irritability for me was the heat intolerance with the hot flushes. And then you get what is called night sweats. Night sweats is the ones you have in the night. So, yes, I'm sorry, ladies, to tell you, yes, but irritability is one of the symptoms that many women experience at this time. Now, memory loss is also one of the issues I mentioned earlier that women do experience. Yes, I agree with you, my dear. We need to help each other as women at this time. That was one of the messages that just came in. Now, some women also get heart palpitations. All of a sudden, the heart is just racing and they don't understand why. So, they should see their doctors about such an issue of this nature. Now, generally speaking, I have given you a list of all of the possible side, the effects that menopause can bring. But what I would say to you is the one that affects more Caucasian women is bone loss, which is the rapid loss of calcium, which is the expected amount of calcium. 20% of the woman's expected lifetime bone loss can occur in the years of menopause. But this happens more with women of Caucasian, or what you would say white, of the whiter race. We who are living in the tropics where the sun is hot and we get lots of vitamin D, we are fortunate. But because of the calcium loss, you'll find that some of the Caucasian women will develop what's called a Dowrage hump, a hump in the back, which will cause them to be bent over. And some of them are at risk of fractures. Very easily, they can fall and break a hip, and then that becomes debilitating. It's quite an issue. It can lead to death if not handled efficiently. Now, calcium intake, additional vitamin D, good diet, those are the things will help at that time for women who are losing their calcium with calcium loss. Now, I'm going to get to the subject of treatment. How do you handle now? The major issues here is yes, it's so difficult for men to cope. This season should enlighten men on how to deal with menopause. Yes, Peter Simmons, you're correct. Because many men, and I must respond to that, Peter, many men are very intolerant to their women at this time. I have attended functions where men stood up and said, if they knew that this is what their wives were going through, they would not have left them. Because you know what? They trade us in for the younger version, and the younger version has the same problem. It's nice that men listen because I'm going to give you some information. We need a part two? Okay, well, I've already said, Katrina Cullimore, that I will be quite willing to come back and answer more questions with time. But I am going to touch now on the issue of sexuality because the reason why I touch this is in my moving around, it is one of the issues that women have that men don't seem to understand. Even when you have a hot flush, sometimes you say, I'm hot, and they say, why are you hot? Something's wrong with you? Well, but the wind is blowing. They don't understand that you're hot because your heat regulating center in your brain is no longer controlling whether you be hot or whether you be cold. So in a room, the air is full blast and you're the only person who is hot. But just let
Okay.
me say this, that as you get older, which is thank God when you get where I am, thank the Lord, 67 in another few months, 2 months, you find that your body adjusts and you're not as irritable anymore. The mood swings will go. As a matter of fact, life starts to take on a different outlook when you get here. You learn how to cope with your body at this time. You exercise, you try and go and do your exercises daily. That helps significantly because then you get an increase of blood flow to the brain, the heart, the lungs, the kidneys, and your skin. So that helps to keep the adrenaline going and the hormones, the endorphins are allowed to go in, and those are the good hormones. And they're going and do the job they're supposed to do in the absence of estrogen. But the one thing that we can't get away from is, and I don't care which woman it is, I don't care where you live in this world. As long as you are a woman, you're going to have an issue with sexual intercourse at that time. So make sure that your partner is listening. Get him to visit the doctor with you so that if there's a need for any intervention, he is on board. Now, you can have intervention by the physicians. I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you that doctors can offer you assistance at that time. Yoga said, of course, yes, Deborah King Gittins, exercises work wonderfully for us women at this time. But you might need a little help in that department with your partner. So you can talk to the pharmacist. There are some non-pharmaceutical jellies that can be used. And if that is not enough, you can, and don't be ashamed. Tell your partner, make your partner a part of the process. Because if you don't, you know what some women used to do? They would go get the stuff and hide it in a drawer. And then when just before the husband is or partner is ready to be intimate, then they're going to bedroom into the bathroom and apply it and come back. No, they should inform the partner, look, I'm having this problem. I believe that it can be helped, it can be treated. Let's go see the doctor. Or let me talk to the pharmacist. Come with me. And if your partner is a part of the process, then he can apply the jelly when you all have made love and you're all ready, because you will get this sensation once the love is there. And you all can make love like you did normally, touch and all the other things that you do, and let him apply and you can apply and have some fun. I mean, when you get this age, there are no children around to interfere with you. You can go to the beach. Well, you can't do a lot of places now, but you can find time for each other at this time. So please, ladies, tell your partners what you are going through so that your partners can be a part of this process.
So, Jenny, if I
Now,
may interject here, it is
yes,
at times that you find that very often the level of conversation, this is often a topic that we have difficulty talking about. Persons are afraid to talk about sexuality. They, even though they are intimate, they are not comfortable talking about intimacy and talking about these types of issues. And very often our communicate because our communication level is not the very best on the personal level with our partners, we are afraid to really explain or find out exactly what is happening, and that contributes to part of the problem.
well, here's what I have said to many women, right? I unfortunately, this is Zoom. When I used to travel giving these presentations, I used to have lots of flyers with the information on them. And I would say to the ladies, look, you're afraid, you're shy, you're little, you don't know how to tell your partner about what is happening. This is what I want you to do. When you go home and it's time for our dinner, you see this information, have a plate with a nice cover on it and put that in the plate and sit down with him. Take the cover off and say, honey, I got this from a meeting or wherever you want to tell him. I got it from the doctor's office. And it's a subject that I think we should talk about. So instead of you having to introduce the subject, see if you can get him to look at the front part of the flyer. I don't have those anymore, but maybe you can pull them down off of Google. But you can find some means of getting him to at least know. Girl, don't fool yourself, ladies. He knows. He knows. Yes, many women shy away from the subject. Regina Brathwaite, yes, you're very true, very right. And they keep what they're going through to themselves. It is unfortunate. Tell them that you heard Jennifer Babb, who is the specialist in this subject, and she said XYZ. Make notes as I am speaking so that you can listen. We need to learn to love our bodies, women. God gave us our bodies for a reason. We have work to do for Him, whether it is that you have to minister in the church, you are a teacher, you are a nurse, you are a maid, whatever your job is, it is one that was designed for you. You're a mother, a grandmother, an aunt, whatever. So love this body enough that you must be able to say to your partner, look, this is happening. You have to do that. Other than that, you will be suffering in silence. Why must you suffer in silence when you can get help? It doesn't make sense. So
Jenny,
get
one of
the
the
yes,
question I want to ask you, and this was asked earlier, is it normal for a woman to experience hot flushes all throughout the day?
of course. Some women are fortunate in that they may have one, but the hot flushes are more severe in the early phases of menopause. Remember, I told you that what happens is that when she suddenly stops, the period stops, and those estrogen receptors suddenly stop receiving the estrogen which is the hormone that they're used to having that feeds the heat regulating center in our brain. It's like a shock to the body. So all of a sudden, there's nothing there to tell you to stay cool, get hot, stay cool. There's nothing to regulate the skin temperature. That's the part of the brain that is now depleted of that signal that it's used to having. So initially, some women can be sitting down quite calmly, not doing anything special. All of a sudden, they break out in one huge flush and they have to pat, pat, pat. And for some women, they think it can be embarrassing. I don't think hot flushes are embarrassing. I think it's
Yes.
just something that we women have to go through. Take out your kerchief or whatever, your tissue, pat, 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 go get up and go into the bathroom, get some tissue, dap your face around your neck, and try to cool yourself down, dry yourself, go back to your meeting. But it is no. There are treatments, therapeutic treatments that doctors can recommend. There are some things on the pharmaceutical shelves that you can purchase. But what I would say to you, if you go to the pharmacy and the pharmacist is going to recommend something like evening primrose oil or whatever they have available, my recommendation is that you should still discuss with your physician if you are going to take anything. I'll tell you why. Now, if your uterus is still intact, meaning you didn't have your uterus removed because of a hysterectomy, because of fibroids, or whatever the issue was, as long as your estrogen, your uterus is still in place, if you take an estrogen and your ovaries are still there, mind you, they might not be functioning because they atrophy after a while. Just like how the vagina starts to shorten and become thin, the ovaries atrophy with time. Yes, anxiety is, yes, Sonia Brown, it is also a symptom of perimenopause. Early irritability you may start to get as well. But yes, I was talking about the treatments that are available. Now, if you are going to take anything from a pharmacist that has that, even if it's a plant estrogen, and you're going to take that, discuss it with your doctor. Here's the reason: when you take an estrogen, whether it's plant or one made in a manufacturing plant lab, sorry, it is going to increase the thickness of your womb, just like the the estrogen would have done when your body was producing it. Now, you cannot afford to have your uterus being thickened and thickened and thickened without some other product that's going to assist with preventing that thickening of the womb, lining of the womb. If that continues, some women can get bleeding issues because the shedding has to take place after a while. So it is better to speak to your doctor, because what physicians may do is offer you a mild progestogen that will help to prevent you from getting too thick a buildup of the lining of your womb. If that persists, you can end up developing something called, you may not remember this, but it's called endometrial hyperplasia, meaning that the womb can become so thickened that then it can start to change in its structure, and that change could bring about negative results at your pap smears. So anything you're going to take, you should discuss it with your doctor. There are products out there that physicians will prescribe that have low dose estrogen with low dose progestogen that will not cause the thickening of the lining of the womb, but will give you the relief from the hot flushes and the night sweats and all those things that you're having, the irritability. It works, it works, it works. Whether it's natural or whether it is manufactured, it works, but you should discuss it with your physician. Because for some women, it is intolerable, highly intolerable, this thing we have called menopause. And not everyone has a personality like mine. I don't hide my personality. I'm a very vibrant person. I love people. I'm a talker. I love to be able to help people. That's my job. And I will find excitement even if there's none. I'm retired and I am doing a whole lot of gardening. You should see my house, around my yard, plant flowers, plant anything that can grow. Because for me, you have to find something that can give you hope that you can enjoy. So that is my personality. But not everybody is me. So some women who are more sedate and are not as vivacious as I am, those are the ones who might at this time feel sad and sorry for themselves. I suggest if you have a girlfriend, talk to her on the phone, because COVID now has changed so much. You can't visit anybody's house. You got to stay home. But if you have a girlfriend who you're close to, give her a call. Talk to her when you can. And that might have to help to increase your ability to cope at these times. Shirley Payne is saying many women find it difficult to admit they are going through menopause. That's about the third time I have heard that. So clearly, Sister Mary, our
Yes,
women need to open up. Our women need to open up. Listen, ladies, do not sit back and take this anymore. Do not do that to yourselves. Please don't harm the planet. I have been places. Wow. Thanks for shedding light on the estrogen, Michelle Harewood. You're welcome, my dear. Let me say this, right? Sonia Brown, are homeopathic remedies safe or will that thicken the... Now, here's what I said about homeopathic remedies. They are perfect, but you should try to speak to your doctor first. Let the doctor see it. Let him see how much estrogen it's releasing. And based on the amount of estrogen that is being released on your daily intake or your every 3 day intake, he might decide, okay, this is safe for you. So if you do want to go that route, there's no harm because women do get relief from those remedies. But I do recommend you should chat with your physician about it. Okay.
And then I think we need to
I
interject
remember,
persons.
and this is what,
I was saying,
pardon?
Jennifer, I know you're saying that we need to see our physicians, and I quite agree with you. And we need to remind
Yeah.
persons we need to see your gynecologist, who is the doctor that specializes in areas of reproductive health, and they would know more about your estrogen levels and the examination of your ovaries and the uterus and so on. So it is, even though you have a general practitioner, it is at this time that you really should be seeing your gynecologist to walk through this process with you.
Well, you just said something very critical. I'm going to agree with you to some extent. Um, the your doctor, when you visit the doctor with your issues, and that was I was coming to that, the doctor is going to take some blood from you and send the blood to the lab to check your hormonal levels. And that will be his confirmation based on the levels. And the lab has certain pointers. As a man, my wife and I are in this together. Thank you, Peter Simmons. Thank you so much. I'm happy to know that you are both in it together. Um, so the doctor will take some blood from the lady, send it off to the lab, and based on the levels of hormone in her blood, that doctor will be able to determine if she is in true menopause or not. And generally speaking, once she hits a certain age, over 50, mind you, some women, because of genetics, and I said that earlier, may even have a period up to 55, 56, a period every month. But that is on the rare occasion. That is the exception rather than the rule. My mom was in at menopause at 50, and I have five sisters. All five of us hit 50. That was the end of this story for us. Um, but in relation to the subject of using the homeopathic medications, there are many of them out there that can be used. But I was talking about some years back, I was speaking to a surgeon, he's obstetrician, and he said that he was doing a hysterectomy on a lady, and the lady was bleeding profusely. He could not stop. They almost lost her. And when she did, they were able to save her. And when he did an analysis of what are you taking? What caused this? Something that must have caused this heavy bleed. It was unusual. He said the bleed was unusually heavy during the operation. And she said that she was drinking every night. Somebody told her that ginger, grated, a whole knob of grated ginger, she would grate and have it every day as a drink between morning and evening. A big knob, not just flavored ginger, a knob of ginger. And what the ginger was doing was thinning her blood, and she didn't even know. So everything we take should be in moderation. I love ginger too, but I don't drink heavy ginger flavored drinks because of that. So that was getting to the issue in relation to homeopathic medication. They work, but I never suggest that you should take them before discussing it. No, We have some general practitioners, I must tell you, Mary, Sister Mary, who are well versed on the subject too. And they are very good. We have a lot of good physicians in Barbados and around the West Indies because I had to work with many of them. And many of them are fully aware and they're well trained. Um, the obstetrician has his or her role to play. So they each have their own role to play in relation to caring for us as women. So, that will be a personal decision that the woman can make. Yeah.
Yes.
So at this time, I am quite open to the questions that you have. Do you have any more questions for me?
Yes, so there were several questions, and
There's Deborah King getting. Could you hold on 1 minute, Mary?
yes,
There's Deborah King getting. She says, I had mentioned earlier that I am about 52 and still get abdominal pain, so I do not know what she started when she started menopause. Well, Deborah King Gittins, as I said, I think you may have missed this. Some women can have a period up to 55. I have known that to happen. In fact, I had a friend who had a period at 56, and she was wondering if so her obstetrician, as you suggested, Mary, did a barrage of tests. Nothing was wrong. But when she got to 57, the period stopped. And her mother went into menopause around that time. So it can be a genetic thing that can bring us in at that time. Sorry, Mary, for
okay.
interrupting.
So I was saying that some person asked, what role does evening primrose oil play in the whole issue of menopause? Is it a good thing to have, and if so, is there a recommended brand? So we have someone
Well,
watching from Minnesota, a gentleman, as a matter of fact, Patrick Jr., and he says
hello,
great
Patrick Jr.
information.
Well, Patrick Jr., thank you very much for joining us from all the way in the United States of America. Do play it safe. In answer to your question, evening primrose oil has given a lot of women relief. It has. But like I said, if the woman still has her uterus in place and she's going to take any, whether it's a hormonal product that has been made in a lab by a manufacturing company, or she's going to take what is on the shelf, which is herbal, what they do is the herbal, many of them will have estrogen as their source of supplying the hormone to the woman. And if you are not sure how much estrogen she's taking, then you're risking developing endometrial hyperplasia or thickening of the lining of the womb. So it would be nice to know how much estrogen is in the evening primrose oil, the strength. And based off the strength, I don't know much about. I know about it, but I've never taken it. But based on the strength of the product, you can discuss it with your doctor. And if the doctor says, okay, this is a low dose preparation, this should be harmless, then go right ahead. But please do not try to take anything without discussing it with your physician first. That
Okay.
is always what I recommend.
So one other question was that the person stated that they entered into menopause at 49 years old, and if that is too early, and if your health is at risk if you enter into menopause early.
Not at all. I went into menopause at 50. That's 1 year ahead of that lady. And there, as I said, the lack of estrogen, which no longer feeds the estrogen receptor sites of the body, which is, as I said, brain, heart, lungs, kidney, all over. Um, the body still functions without the hormone because I'm still alive. Call this person said, is cellular. Most doctors don't like herbal anything. Well, I will say on the side of the physicians, the reason for that is, and that is just aside, our physicians are trained to dispense your general medication that they are trained to dispense as opposed to herbal type medications. That is where many doctors follow the science. They look for studies, they look for side effects, they want to know strengths of product, um, and that is their training. And so most physicians are trained to prescribe medication which allows them to be able to determine whether the patient is at risk of developing um, a rash, developing um, heart palpitations, whether the patient will have a thrombosis. So physicians are scientists and they prefer to work in a scientific environment because it is relatively safe for them when prescribing a drug. I'm not a pharmacist, I'm not a physician, but I've worked with them. And I know that it is their measure of safety. So when they prescribe a drug, they know what's going to be the best dose, recommended dose to suit your condition. For instance, if you are hypertensive, you're moderately hypertensive, meaning your blood pressure doesn't say it goes to 150, 80. It doesn't go any higher than that, but you are still at risk of developing a stroke if it doesn't become controlled. The physician might decide to give you an antihypertensive drug that is not as potent as one that will bring the blood pressure down drastically when it's taken, but may give you an antihypertensive drug that will give you, for instance, extended release, which is over a 24-hour period, and that will give you the range that will allow your blood pressure to come down safely over 24 hours. So physicians make those decisions based on the science. They are scientists. Now, it doesn't mean that herbal medications aren't scientifically done, but what you would have to do if you're going to use a herbal medication for menopause, read upon it, get the literature, Google it, get as much information on it as you can so that you can then share it with your physician. I have, I say 100%. Shane Robinson, what about the risk of
That's
breast
so.
cancer associated? No, that's a good question. Now, many of the HRTs studies have shown that there is a risk, but the risk is often associated with long-term use. I know because I work for a pharmaceutical company and I'm aware of all the studies that were done. Now, long term and low dose is usually what is recommended. Now, if the woman has a history of cancer, for instance, if her mother died of cancer or had a cancer, or she has close family members who develop cancer, the physician will probably not put her on a hormone replacement therapy because even though there are not, you know how therapy that is low dose, very low dose, the risk is down significantly. But this is where physicians, and I must admire them because I work with hundreds of them, they look at benefits versus risks. If the woman is having such a hard time where she can't sleep at night, she's getting mood swings, she's having hot flushes that are just devastating her during the course of the day, she's no longer interested in an intimate relationship with her husband because that's going to happen. Those kind of patients or persons who are having such severe side effects from menopause usually get withdrawn from their partners. If she tries the herbal and it's not working, it's not enough, some physician may consider a low dose for a short period. The
Yes.
physician will be the one to determine how short that period is based on the studies. So he may not put her on it for 10, 15 years, but maybe just about 3 months, then give her a break, see how she does. Another 3 months, see how she does. And then lower the dose as she goes along. So he reduces the strength of the product within her system over time. So he
Okay.
reduces her risk of developing cancer based on how the product is used. Those are the manufactured products for hormonal therapy. Now, the herbal medications have little or no risk, but the major risk for herbal medications is that many of them do not have a progesterone or a product like progestogen that is able to help to keep the endometrium or the lining of the womb safely in a safe level and environment where it does not build up. So you will have to look for a low dose if evening primrose oil is available and you can find you can talk to your doctor, as I said, research it, and if it has a low dose available, check it out, but talk to your doctor about it.
Okay, so Jenny, we are at 1 hour and 10 minutes, and I have a few questions from our audience. Someone wants to know if you've had a hysterectomy, if you can still have hormone replacement therapy. And as a follow up to that, how long is long when it comes to hormone replacement therapy? What length of period would you consider a long time for hormone replacement therapy?
Okay, hysterectomy. Should she be placed on hormonal? Can she take hormonal therapy?
If
No,
she
if
had
she
a
has had a
hysterectomy.
hysterectomy, listen to me carefully, my dear.
Mhm.
Now, you can have two types of hysterectomies: a total abdominal hysterectomy, where the womb, ovaries, and fallopian tubes are removed. That's called a total abdominal hysterectomy. If she has had that, the physician may want to consider a hormonal treatment for her because she definitely will experience the side effects of having that uterus out. Yes, here we go. Thanks, Mary. If she has got the
So,
ovaries, fallopian tubes, and the whole womb removed, okay? Once that has happened, the physician will want to consider some hormonal treatment because immediately on removal, she's going to start to find she's going to get hot flushes and she start with the night sweats. That may be those may be the first two things that she may start to get because I recall when I worked in the hospital, many women came in from surgery. By the next 2 days, they start to get the hot flushes, and sometimes the physicians have to start them on a hormonal therapy immediately once they start to get the hot flushes. Now, if she has what is called a subtotal hysterectomy, where the womb is removed, fallopian tubes, but the ovaries are left. Sorry, where the womb is removed, but the fallopian tubes and the ovaries are left. What the physician is doing is, especially if she's a young woman, leaving those ovaries to give her still some estrogen production for at least another 6 years. So it all depends on the type of surgery that she has had. If it's a total abdominal hysterectomy, she more than likely will require a hormonal therapy. If it is subtotal, where the womb is removed but the ovaries remain, then she may not need, she will not go into menopause until another 6 years or so.
okay. And the other part of that question is how long, what time period would you consider long for HRT?
Well, when I was busy working with these products, um, I recall that the study showed that long term is 10, 15 years.
Okay.
If they saw short term as maybe a year or two, or even maybe three. But what they usually would recommend is she would start with the first 3 months, then she can have a break, see how she does, and then the physician can put her back on again. And then what they start to do is they can actually reduce the number of days that she is taking it so that she doesn't have to have the full month supply. Because eventually, as I said, her estrogen receptor sites will stop craving the estrogen that they're used to. and they will settle down with time, like mine has settled. So it gives her body a chance to go back to the normal way of allow her to be a normal person. I see a question
Oh,
here from Karen Calendar. Do men go through menopause? No, they go through something quite different, but it's close to menopause. They behave a little different, and their prostate gland starts producing testosterone, and they have a lot of changes themselves. But that is a subject that I prefer the male doctors to discuss. I like to stay with the ladies.
okay. So another question was if the lack of estrogen causes the growth of facial hair.
Yeah, well, it has been shown actually that again it's genetics. When one hormone is reduced in its production, the other ones, in some women genetically, that starts to be increased. Progesterone or progestogen, and then the manufactured product is progesterone, is more responsible for the male type function. So it brings some kind of balance, but we don't need that as much. We need more of the estrogen. And so some women do find that as they age in, and again, genetically, more than likely, a mother, an aunt, somebody in the family would have developed hair around the chin um, as their age, and they're no longer producing estrogen. Actually, what you will realize is that for many women as they age, you can tell a woman's age when some women, by the way they start to speak, they have a very large growling tone as they age. You realize that older women tend to sound more nasally like. Well, that's because the estrogen is no longer there to keep that tone in within the vocal cords. Because remember, I told you the estrogen receptor sites are everywhere, and they control how we look, how we speak, and how we function and how we carry ourselves as women. So genetics play a big role there as well.
Okay, so Jenny, we have spoken a lot about hot flushes and some of the things that we go through, the perimenopausal phase, how we can get into menopause either surgically or naturally. I want us to zero in a little bit, and I know you did mention it, on what are some of the ways that we can cope. So I heard you loud and clear that our reaction very often is tied to our personality and how we view life and the type of person that we are. But what are some of the practical things that persons can do? You mentioned picking up the phone and calling a friend, having a discussion, your diet and your exercise. Are there any support groups out there for persons battling
Well,
menopause?
I must apologize, but I used to be heading a menopause society of Barbados a few years back, and we had quite a few women who, I mean, we had quite some women who were attending, and unfortunately, with time, we lost the funding for the placement because we used to have meetings every month, and so that came to an end. And so that then took me out. I used to be visiting churches and schools, and I went everywhere trying to educate women on the subject. Um, so I believe that when COVID is gone, we may have to look at some other forum for women again because it was so needed then, and I know it's needed now because every year, millions of women around the world, the globe, and so it's a subject that requires women to be in a support group. Some of the things that I would recommend that really helps, and you just have to pay attention to what I'm saying. Everyone doesn't really, some women don't understand the importance of exercise. It's like, I have to get up every day and put on clothes and go and exercise. Oh man, that's boring. No, I'm telling you, as women, if you are menopausal, Make yourself get up and go out and exercise. Make yourself do it. In other words, no, as long as you are like me, retired, make sure that it is number one after you've said your prayers in the morning. Number one on your agenda, exercise. It doesn't have to be an hour. It can be 45 minutes. You can start with half an hour walking around your block. It doesn't have to be out on the street. It can be right within your neighborhood. Exercise gives the endorphins. Now, that's the hormone, that's the good hormone that drives us. Thank you very much, Katrina Collymore. You're most welcome. That's the hormone that drives us as women. That helps, it helps men too. It's the feel good hormone that we can take advantage of when the estrogen has failed us. So, pair of long leggings and a simple top and a little straw hat and an umbrella in case the dogs run you in the neighborhood and go out every morning. Now, there's one thing I must tell you: when you get to this age, you can't take too much hot sun, so you have to do it before the sun gets too hot. Because when I first was retired, which is 2 years ago, I used to go every morning, 7, 8 o'clock, sometimes 9 o'clock. I'm outside exercising for my hour. I soon found that the sun was too much for me. I started to be so drained by 12 o'clock. I could hardly, I just needed to drink water, drink water, drink water, and try to rehydrate myself. I said, okay, I found out where the trick was. I have 3 bottles of water in a little pet bottle. I have a little haversack and I put two two in it. So one in my hand and one in the bag. Before I start to exercise in the morning, and I try to go 6 o'clock, just before it gets too hot. I drink about 2 glasses of water before I leave home. And as my husband and I go together, and as I'm about to start the very first round of exercise, I drink some from the bottle. And so we do 6 laps around our neighborhood, and that gives us 1 hour. Every time I'm about to start a new lap, once I reach the certain point, I drink another set of water. And so I keep hydrating and hydrating as I go along, because as you age, your body functions are not the same. Everything slows down. So you become dehydrated much faster when you're menopause or just aging. So you have to pay attention to hydrating when you are exercising. The other thing is, I eat one banana in the morning before I go out, so that gives me the energy. Some people, if you're diabetic, you may want to prefer an orange or an apple, something that's not sweet, that will give you the energy without the sugar. But you should try hard, ladies. Exercise is critical. Those endorphins, they get into your venous system and they get into the tissues, the legs, the brain cells, and you feel regenerated, invigorated when you do a little exercise. As a matter of fact, there's another plus to it, and I know that men are listening, but sexually, you start to feel like a young girl again. Your body responds remarkably to exercise. You start to feel intimate relations. You want to have intimate relations with your partner. Everything comes back. The body no longer craves the estrogen, but then you have things that regenerate you and invigorates you and makes you feel good, makes you feel like how a woman should feel. So exercise is critical. Now, here's the other thing that we need to pay attention to. At night, avoid drinking Lipton's tea, those teas that can get you warm. Try not to drink those. You don't have to have a cold drink, but you should have a tea that is not going to, that hasn't caffeine. Those caffeine drinks you should avoid. But you can have like peppermint, you can have chamomile, a mild ginger that's not too strong. cup of tea in the evenings, maybe with some biscuits and little sardines as your supper. But you start to eat better when you reach menopause because there are some benefits. There are some ugly, non communicable diseases that are waiting and hoping for an opportunity to grab you. And the more you pay attention to your body and the more you pay attention to your health, you may not always be able, Jennifer McNeil, good night. I come in late, but the information that I am hearing is good, very good for me. Thank you so much, Jennifer. It's a pleasure. But you may not be able to prevent some of the NCDs because some of them are as a result of genetic factors. But for instance, you could have a mother, a father, and six aunts and uncles, and all of them are hypertensive. You exercise every day, you eat the right things, you do all the, you're thin as a rat, and then you still end up hypertensive. That can happen. Okay? So, but what happens is that because when you reach menopause, the body now goes into a different mode. It wants to slow you down. Don't let it slow you down. But what you do is you start to pay attention to your body, to yourself. And when you eat correctly and you exercise with it, you will find that as opposed to having severe hypertension, you may have moderate hypertension, meaning your blood pressure may go up if you eat the wrong things, if you become too heavy in weight and so on, if you have too much weight, and then that can affect the heart and so on. But the key here is keeping your body in terms of eating correctly, exercising. Those two things go hand in hand. Your visit to your physician to make sure that if you have an NCD, that it's checked. You can get your heart checks to make sure that the heart is right. The cholesterol, that's a big issue for a lot of women today and men. And so eating well is one of the best things you can do. Now, everybody talks about how eating correctly and eating well is an issue because food is so expensive. But here's what: lettuce is not too expensive. You can get a bag of lettuce for sometimes $3 in the supermarket. Some cucumbers when it's raining are cheap. Okras, okras a dime a dozen. I mean, buy the things that don't cost an arm and a leg. Buy some cheap apples. You have the $10, 10 apples for $6 at Emerald City. Not advertising, but that's where I get mine. And I buy the cheap apples. You can have one of those every morning. Then, because if you plan your meals correctly, you can eat well and not have to worry about eating the people's food that they cook. You don't know how they cook it, but you know how you cook your food. You know what you put in it. And you know that your meal is going to be clean and it's going to be well prepared. So pay attention to your meals, pay attention to what you eat, exercise, and try to take care of you and your partner if you have one. Because when you get to this age, there ain't no place else you going. You serving God, you have children, you're gonna love them, and if grandchildren come along, like I have been fortunate to have, you can thank the Lord for them and enjoy your time till the Lord is ready for you. But don't go before He's ready for you. Make sure you take good care of your bodies at this time. That is critical.
So, Jennifer,
But
I want to thank
thank
you
you all
so
for the
much.
very informative.
Yes, someone is saying thanks for this very informative information. It's now 28 minutes past 9 o'clock. Our allocated time is an hour and 30 minutes. We have had quite a
You're
bit
welcome.
of information laid before us, and there's still quite a few questions to be answered. So I believe that our president at some time will arrange for a part two of this session so that we can have some of those questions answered and persons ask things like what are some of the types of hormone therapy that is available, and a whole number of things. But Jennifer, tonight we really want to thank you for the information that you have shared with us. Some of it was quite scientific, but at a level where all of us could have understood. And that is what we value, that people get information that they can then take away. And we talk about what have you learned, what have stirred you emotionally or in your gut, and what do you have that you can now move away with. And we have lots of information that we can walk away with. We know what menopause is, when it's likely to start, what are some of the symptoms, the types of menopause that can occur, and what are some of the basic things that we should do. Women, I
Thank
think
you, Michelle.
one of the takeaway things that we have to take from here is that our mindset and our whole attitude and demeanor in this process, which is a natural process in life, is what is going to help us to cope. One of the things that I have always wondered as a person, when I think about the amount of pain and discomfort that we endure every month as women, when it came to that time of the month, I often wonder why it is that we got so caught up or depressed or sad when it came time for this section of our life or this period in our life to come to an end. But when I understood the chemical changes that goes on in our body, then it changed my outlook. I trust tonight that this information have empowered you to get up and recognize that it's a normal phase in life, and it is something that we can survive, and we can cope with it, we can strive with it, we can live and enjoy life during our menopausal years. Jennifer, again, we say thank you. Madam
Well, I
President,
thank you. I thank you. Just let me say thank you very much too to you, wonderful ladies, for giving me the opportunity. I see that we were able to reach Trinidad, the United States of America, and even Sister Michelle and her husband Elon from my own church. I saw Sister Miriam. I saw some of my own members who joined in. So thank you all so much, and God bless you all. It has been a pleasure.
so Madam President, I know you control to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you so much, Mary. You know, it was so informative, really, really a wealth of knowledge. And I am sure, you know, as I focus on all that Jennifer was saying, the scripture that came to my mind was when the Bible talks about us being fearfully and wonderfully made. And you know, as I focus on it, menopause, menstrual cycle, whatever it is, we're still fearfully and wonderfully made. God intentionally made us this way for His honor, for His glory, and also that we can interact with each other and we can, you know, complement each other and make each other's life complete. And so then, as Mary was talking about the menstrual cycle again, I want the men. I am so happy. I felt so elated to see that there were men on and men making comments. We cannot do it without you. We cannot make it without you. We need your support because trust me, when you look at the first syllable in menstrual, is the word MEN. When you look at the first syllable in menopause, is MEN. So it means that we are in this together. We are in this together. So that we thank God for the men, and we pray that the information that we shared tonight would have helped, you know, like even couples in relationships that would be hijacked and would be, you know, having issues or would be stressed because of the changes. And I surmised from all that Jenny was saying, that menopause is really a transitional period in the life of us as women. And with this transition, a transition is just a process or a period where you are changing from one state or one condition to the next. So it means that even while we are changing, we need to have those significant others in our lives to walk this journey with us. And gone are the days where we're looking at menopause as taboo, as something that is only looked at in the closet, as something that is held close to our chest. No, if we must be successful, if we must be fulfilling, if we must be beneficiaries on both sides, both persons must be involved in the process. The man must be involved, the woman must be involved as we transition. Diet and exercise is so critical. We want to encourage you. So we are having our private summers, we are having our hot flashes, we are becoming miserable, we are becoming irritable, we are becoming depressed. We are crying for no apparent reason. There are those mood swings and mood changes. Let's get those endorphins, those feel good hormones going, that we can have a better quality life. And we were told what we can do to regenerate and invigorate and refresh and even resuscitate some aspects of our lives. We want to thank all of you who joined us from the US, from the UK, from the Caribbean. Some say they were from St. Lucia, from Tobago, from Trinidad, from Pennsylvania, from Minnesota. Those of you who ever came, we want to thank you for joining us. For sure, we're going to have a part two, because there's so many questions that are still to be answered, and we're not going to deny you that opportunity to have your questions answered. So next month, for sure, we're going to have a part two. We just have to work out the logistics with Jenny when she'll be available, and for sure, we're going to have our part two of when on pause is more than pandemic pause. And we are going to make sure that the men learn also more about themselves, that we can also understand them, because in as much as we want the men to understand us, we also need to understand them, and to understand that transition will always be a part. Sheldon Millington, they're from New Jersey, and all of you who have been, on and hearing, I am praying that as a result of what we've heard this evening, knowledge is power, and the application of knowledge is greater power. I pray that something said this evening would have brought some semblance of order and help to some life, to relationships, that whereas you might have been looking at the individual as the enemy, you would understand this is something that you can get through together. Once you look at it together, and you work through the process, that you can get, you don't have to look for a new person. You don't have to look for a new, how you're looking for a new car. You don't have to look for a new person. It's the same person. It's just a period of transition. Learn to navigate the transition. Understand that we are fearfully and wonderfully made by God. And because we are fearfully and wonderfully made by God, it means that, thank you so much, Earl Fitzpatrick, yes, Cheryl and Earl, yes, they said that they will work towards the benefit of both my wife and myself. Thank you so much. And all of you who have heard, who have listened, we're going to come again and we're going to share more, that whereas you might be ready to fall off the cliff, you can rescue. You can rescue each other, and together you can live another 20 years. Jenny, I was thinking that it is notable that sometimes after 25 years, 30 years, you see couples divorcing and separating. And when you do the investigative work and you do the prodding and the probing, you realize it is because persons have not been able to navigate because of a lack of knowledge. The Bible says where the knowledge is lacking, you perish. And because of the lack of knowledge, where we could have saved marriages and saved relationships, many relationships have gone through the elders because we did not know. And so this evening we are praying that the information that was shared would have reached some family, some couple, some woman that feels ostracized and feels as though she's at the end of the road, ready to give up, feels as though I can't make it. I don't think that I can live another day. We want you to know that you can make it. You have a crowd of women that are going through the same thing as you, and the same way Jenny said that she made it. I'm going to be 60 this year, and I've had for the last months to be navigating some moments. I became menopausal at 45 because, as you said, genetics. My mom was menopausal in her 30s, and so we have to be able to live with the information, gather the information, so that we will know having the information how to conduct ourselves, how to function, and not say as an enemy, but still say as we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And this is a part of the fearful and wonderfully made by God. And because of that, God will put persons like Jennifer and Mary in our lives to help us on this journey of managing and navigating and being successful at the end of it. So we want to say thanks to you for joining. Those of you who came, thanks to Mary again. Thanks so much to Jennifer for your wealth of information. Stay tuned. We're coming back next month with part 2 of When on Pause is More Than Pandemic Pause. So God bless you. Have a wonderful night from Women of Excellence and Empowerment Ministries. We're glad that you took the time out to join us tonight. We love you. We pray God's blessings upon you. We declare that God bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon you and give you peace. May goodness and mercy and strength and favor of God follow you all the days of your life. May you prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. May nothing be missing, nothing be lacking, nothing be even withheld from your life, in Jesus' name. Also, we want to say thanks to those behind the scene, the technical support of Michelle and Shaldine behind the scene. Thank you so much. God bless you, Marissa, who would have worked toward making this evening a success. God bless you. We love you, and we look forward to joining us again next month for part 2 of When on Pause is More Than Pandemic Pause. Have a great night and a victorious week. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Empowerment, ministry, and a heart for people. We are the Women of Excellence and Empowerment International. The heart of who we are is seen by the fruit of our labor. The Fiesta, King's Daughters program, empowering our educators, and more.